Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that your salary hasn't changed, but everything around you suddenly costs more. Your groceries are more expensive, filling up your car takes more money, rent, utilities, insurance, and even basic household goods seem to rise month after month. This is not a sudden financial crash or a dramatic economic collapse. It is something much quieter, much slower, and often far more dangerous. It is inflation. Understanding how this process works is one of the most important financial lessons anyone can learn today. What inflation really means for everyday life. Inflation is often described as a simple increase in prices, but the reality is much deeper than that. When economists talk about inflation, they are referring to the gradual decline in the purchasing power of money. In practical terms, this means that the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services over time. For example, a grocery bill that used to cost $100 might cost $120 or $130 just a few years later. The products may be the same, but the value of the dollar used to buy them has changed. For households, this shift can feel confusing. Many people assume their finances are stable as long as their income remains the same. However, if prices rise faster than wages, the household is effectively becoming poorer even if the paycheck looks identical. This is why inflation can quietly weaken financial stability. Most families do not immediately adjust their spending habits when inflation begins to rise. Instead, they slowly feel the pressure through rising costs. Over time, these increases can force households to cut back on discretionary spending, delay major purchases, or take on more debt. The longer inflation persists, the more significant these adjustments become. Why the middle class feels inflation? The most inflation affects everyone, but its impact is not evenly distributed across society. The middle class is often the group most exposed to inflationary pressures. Lower-income households certainly feel rising prices immediately because a larger portion of their income goes toward essentials like food, housing, and transportation. However, middle-class families face a different type of vulnerability. Most middle-class households rely heavily on salaries rather than investments for their financial stability. Their wages may increase slowly over time, but those increases rarely keep pace with inflation during periods of rapid price growth. At the same time, the middle class tends to accumulate savings for long-term goals such as home ownership, retirement, and education. If inflation rises while these savings remain in low-interest accounts, their real value begins to decline. In other words, money that took years to save may lose purchasing power much faster than expected. This creates a financial squeeze where both income and savings struggle to keep up with rising costs. The hidden impact on savings. One of the most damaging effects of inflation is the way it quietly erodes savings. Many people assume that keeping money in a savings account is the safest financial strategy. While savings accounts protect against market volatility, they often provide very low interest rates. If a savings account earns 2% interest but inflation is running at 5%, the saver is actually losing purchasing power every year. This means the money may appear to be growing slightly in nominal terms, but in real terms, its value is declining. Over long periods of time, this effect can become extremely powerful. Money saved today may have significantly less purchasing power in the future if inflation remains elevated. For retirees or individuals approaching retirement, this can create serious financial challenges. Fixed savings must stretch over decades, and inflation can dramatically reduce how far those savings will go. Inflation and the cost of everyday essentials. Inflation does not affect every category of spending equally. Certain essential expenses tend to rise faster than others, which increases the pressure on household budgets. Housing costs are often one of the biggest contributors to inflation. Rent and home prices can rise quickly in response to changes in interest rates, construction costs, and population growth. For families trying to buy their first home, rising housing prices can make ownership feel increasingly out of reach. Food prices are another critical area where inflation is felt immediately. Agricultural production depends heavily on energy, transportation, and labor costs. When these inputs become more expensive, grocery prices typically rise as well. Transportation costs also play a major role. Rising fuel prices increase the cost of commuting, shipping goods, and running businesses. This creates a ripple effect throughout the economy. Healthcare expenses, insurance premiums, and education costs have also shown long-term upward trends. Together, these essential categories form the core expenses of middle-class households. When inflation affects these areas simultaneously, families often feel the financial pressure very quickly. Why inflation has become a major economic concern. In recent years, inflation has returned as one of the central concerns in economic policy discussions. After a long period of relatively stable prices, many countries experienced sharp inflation spikes due to several overlapping factors. Supply chain disruptions played a major role. Global manufacturing and shipping networks faced unprecedented challenges, leading to shortages of key products and components. Energy prices also fluctuated significantly due to geopolitical tensions and changes in production levels. At the same time, strong consumer demand and large fiscal stimulus programs increase the amount of money circulating in the economy. When demand grows faster than supply, prices naturally begin to rise. Central banks responded by raising interest rates in an effort to slow inflation. Higher interest rates reduce borrowing and spending, which can help stabilize prices over time. However, this approach also has side effects. Higher borrowing costs make mortgages, auto loans, and credit card debt more expensive. Businesses may delay investments or hiring decisions. Economic growth can slow as a result. Balancing inflation control with economic stability is one of the most difficult challenges policymakers face. Protecting purchasing power over time. While inflation cannot be eliminated entirely, there are ways individuals can protect their purchasing power over time. One of the most effective strategies is long-term investing. Historically, diversified investments in equities have tended to grow faster than inflation over extended periods. Another important factor is income growth. Skills, education, and career advancement can help individuals increase their earning potential, allowing them to keep pace with rising costs. Managing debt is also critical. High-interest debt becomes more expensive when inflation leads to higher interest rates. Reducing unnecessary debt can provide greater financial flexibility during uncertain economic periods. Finally, maintaining awareness of inflation trends can help households make better financial decisions. Understanding how inflation affects savings, investments, and spending allows individuals to adapt their strategies more effectively. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more financial and economic insights, and share in the comments how inflation has affected your daily expenses or savings strategy.